They came like a storm across the plains, lightning cavalry, arrows in flight, cities burning. By 1241, the Mongols stood at Europe's doorstep. Then the empire's leader died overnight. The tide turned. This is the story of how distance, law, and timing spared Western Europe. The Mongol conquests were not accidental. They were the product of a transformed steppe, brilliant generals, and a war-tested system of logistics and intelligence. Under leaders like Genghis Khan and his successors, mounted archers, mobility, and ruthless operational planning allowed them to dominate Central Asia, the Middle East, and eventually push into Eastern Europe. From about 1236, the Mongol advance across the Eurasian steppe accelerated. They conquered the Volga Bulgars, overran Russian principalities, and by 1240 had sacked Kiev. In 1241, coordinated columns under Batu Khan and his generals swept into Poland and Hungary, routing armies at Legnica in April 1241 and inflicting a catastrophic defeat on Hungary at the Battle of Mohi just days later. Scouting parties pushed as far as the Austrian frontiers. Western Europe seemed within reach. The decisive political moment came later that year. Ögedei Khan, the great Khan seated in Karakorum and the grandson of Ögedei, died in December 1241. Mongol custom required the princes of royal blood to return home for the cruelty. The Great Council to elect a new Khan. By law and by political necessity, senior commanders and princes abandoned their forward campaigns to travel back to the Mongol capital and take part in succession proceedings. This is the principal reason many historians give for the Mongol withdrawal from Central Europe. Yet the death is only part of the story. Historians point to several reinforcing factors. The Mongol war machine was superb at rapid movement, but sustaining large armies far from home, across the forests and mountains of Europe, was costly. Spring campaigning across unfamiliar terrain, with rivers and marshes, complicated cavalry operations. European fortifications, heavy cavalry, and marshy ground in parts of Hungary also hampered Mongol tactics that were so effective on the open steppe. And the empire faced multiple fronts. Stability at the center and succession politics often trumped regional conquest. When Ögedei died, these pressures combined. The need for a new Khan was the legal trigger. Distance, season, and supply logistics sealed the decision. It's tempting to imagine Mongol banners over Paris or Rome. Speculating is dangerous, but historians offer guarded scenarios. With sustained campaigning and time to adapt tactics to European terrain, the Mongols could have posed an existential threat to medieval polities. Yet Europe's network of fortifications, the mobilization of feudal levies, and sheer resources made outright an immediate conquest far from guaranteed. In short, Europe was spared by a mix of law, logistics, and timing, not by invincible knights. After Ögedei's death, Mongol politics turned inward. Competing factions, the need to elect a successor, and intra-imperial rivalries occupied the Khanate. The Western forces under Batu returned and focused on consolidating the Russian and steppe zones rather than renewing an immediate invasion westward. The great wave of expansion paused only to resume in other directions decades later under different leaders and circumstances. History remembers the Mongols as unstoppable land in many contexts. But the story of 1236 to 1242 reminds us, empires are limited by distance, law, and politics. Europe's survival was not a heroic last stand of medieval knights alone. It was the complex product of logistics, timing, and Mongol political custom. The Mongol withdrawal reshaped Eurasia's balance of power and left a legacy of disrupted polities, cultural exchange, and altered trade routes. History sometimes turns on small things: a death, a law, a delayed courier. The Mongol campaigns show how human institutions, even customs of succession, can redirect the fate of continents. The steppes roared across Europe and then quieted not because Europe was invincible, but because history's calendar demanded they go home. Was Europe lucky or simply distant? Vote in the poll and tell us which factor you think mattered most: political custom, logistics, terrain, or sheer chance. Thanks for watching.